Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Brian Funk, VP of Marketing here at Virtuous, and I'm so excited to kick off a conversation today amongst a group of fundraising leaders about what did it look like to go through changing your nonprofit CRM, what it was life like before, what were all of the considerations and questions asked and pain points we were looking to solve throughout the process, and what does life look like today? So really excited to take you all on a journey. And before I introduce our fantastic panel that we have lined up today, just want to set a few ground rules. Want to make sure that everyone has their chat pane set to everyone. We really encourage people getting involved in the chat. If you have questions, we will bubble them up and integrate them throughout the conversation. The session will also be recorded, and we'll be sure to share that with you. And of course, we're really glad that you are all here. We know that your time is precious. You are all working diligently towards fueling your mission. And again, really value your time and glad that everybody joined us today. So let us know where you're from. Let us know where you're calling in from. I see a few familiar names in the chat, so that's always really fun. I think I saw Ron Hogue is here with us today. Hey, Ron, thanks for joining us. And great. Let's get started here in just a moment. So before we kick off, I just want to let everyone a little bit know behind the scenes of the Virtuous story. So Virtuous was founded to help nonprofits build better relationships with donors, inspire their givers, and grow global generosity. And we believe that generosity has the power to change the world. Generosity has the power to change the way that we interact and engage with each other. Generosity has the power to change the relationships that we want to build with our donors, and that their generosity has the power to change all of the great problems that we're working to solve in our local communities and in our global community. And I often like to tell people, I was joking with the panel before we hopped on today, that I often say that I am actually a fundraiser in marketer's clothing. So I spent over 10 years in the sector as a fundraising leader and director of development, working on issues across healthcare and international human rights. And so I've seen the power of generosity firsthand. I like to tell people that as a fundraiser, I showed up for the mission, but I stayed for the donors. I found that half of my job was actually facilitating and helping donors fulfill and see their own legacy and helping them unleash the power and change that they wanted to see in the world. And I consider that one of the great honors of my life as a fundraiser. So all that to say, thank you for the work that you all do throughout your efforts, day in and day out. You are changing the world, and we so appreciate everything that you do. So let's kick it off. I would love to introduce the panel here today. And folks, let's just popcorn it. Would love to hear a little bit about who you are, what organization that you're with, but also want to hear just like the heart behind why you are in fundraising today and what led you to be where you are today. So Barbara, I'd love it if you could kick us off.
Sure. My name is Barbara Krusko. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Arizona's Children Association. I'm coming in here from Phoenix, Arizona. And our organization is one of the oldest and largest child welfare and behavioral health organizations in the state. We are a statewide organization with a number of different programs, from foster care and adoption to children's behavioral health, to our family education and support services. So we're kind of a comprehensive organization that cares for children and families in Arizona.
Beautiful. Thanks. Seth, I'm putting you on the spot.
Sure. So Seth McLaughlin with Meltrotter Ministries in Grand Rapids. We're a homeless ministry. It's been around for 125 years or so. We do obviously shelter services, but then housing, workforce training, prevention, diversion, kind of a multifaceted approach to homelessness. And that's, to answer your question, Brian, what do I love about my job? Like, that's, my background is all in economic development, community development. I've spent time in Atlanta, spent time in Central America. And so this is, I'm passionate about how do we connect donor dollars to things that will actually move the needle on social ills. And so that's what I get to do, is be a part of how do we create housing solutions, workforce solutions around homelessness.
Beautiful. Thanks, Seth. Brian, bring us home.
I'm Brian Fegley, Senior Director of Advancement with the Western Dominican Province. The Dominican Order is a 800-year-old Catholic religious order, and is worldwide, split up into regions. So we're the Western United States region, our province. We have parishes, campus ministries, and other apostolates up and down the West Coast. And Dominicans really focus on intellectual teaching and preaching, and that's sort of their charism, their gift. And yeah, I got into fundraising. Wasn't what I said what I wanted to do when I was a kid, but it's a very fulfilling job. Yeah, I think I'm like you, Brian, where I came for the mission, but you kind of stay for the donors once you get to know them and how passionate they are for the mission and how they want to help. So yeah, it's just a great job. I love to work with people.
Beautiful. Great. Well, we're so grateful that you all are here today and really excited to dive in, pull back the layers. So where I want to start is I want to roll back the clock. You all, have made the decision to go through what is not a light decision. Changing your nonprofit CRM and changing your technology impacts everything about your organization, how you operate, your people, your processes. It's a big decision. So before we even get there, I want to roll back the clock and just get a sense of what was life like before. Would love to just surface, day to day, what were some of the pain points you were experiencing, whether that was individually or across your team. Would love to just hear everybody just give some detail on what was life like before Virtuous.
I mean, I can go first. We were with Blackbaud with Razor's Edge. We had NXT and Razor's Edge 7. I think a major pain point for us were, if you're on the road and you needed a query that maybe is more complex than NXT can handle, you got to spin up Citrus and have Razor's Edge 7. And it just, for our major fundraisers, those of us who were just traveling a lot, it just wasn't a very practical solution. And yeah, there was just a lot of, Blackbaud's a typical older legacy company, and dealing with their business model and billing practices, slow feature rollouts, slow customer support, just sort of typical pain points with working with a larger company is how I would define that period for our fundraising.
What about you, Barbara?
Well, I've worked with Blackbaud products my entire career, which is about 30 years. And what I saw Blackbaud go from a very small new company that was very similar to Virtuous, fundraisers had come in, started this company. It was really about, relationships with the donors. And then I found that it just grew so big. And here at Arizona's Children's Association, we are on both the DB version and the NXT. We have had no training really on NXT. And our needs are very simple here. We don't need a lot of the big bells and whistles that Blackbaud maybe has, but our biggest thing is the difficulty in, querying, running certain reports. And we found that they keep taking things away from us. Now we're doing our thank you letters, merging outside of Razor's Edge because they took away the ability to do that. And they wanted us to buy another product to be able to do that in Razor's Edge. So I became frustrated with a lot of that. And our issues here are our retention and being able to really focus on donor retention and get really personal with our donors. And it's difficult to do that with this particular database that we're working with. And the final nail in the coffin was the service. We could not get any. I finally got in touch with whoever our customer success person was. I didn't even know we had a customer success person. So I just found the service was very, very lacking. You have to pay if you want to call somebody on the phone instead of just chat with them. And the nickel and diming got to be a little too much for me.
Seth.
Yeah, for us, similar. I think service was number one. My boss, who was really making those decisions early in the stage, I mean, she would say that just we were sick of feeling like we owed them something just because we were a part of Blackbaud. And then for us, a big thing was just the how opaque everything was. Like you just had no idea kind of where to find things. Our users weren't using it because it was tough to manage, tough to make sense of it. And so, here we are trying to implement growth strategies, and the majority of our people are like, I just don't really use it because it's cumbersome. And it's just like, well, that's a problem. So yeah.
I think something.
Right. If I could also mention that my organization was involved in the data breach. So that was a really huge thing for us with our board. We lost a lot of confidence in the way they handled that. So I had to mention that as well.
That was the moment for our organization where we poked our head up out of the trenches to see what was out there. And that was what started the snowball that turned into the avalanche for us to leave Blackbaud, was the data breach too.
Seth, what was it at Mel Trotter? Because I believe you all came over in 2020 as well, right?
Yeah, we were early 2020, so we're almost 3 years now. Yeah, I think it was that idea. It's just we just couldn't create a pathway for our donor advisors to use it, because it just wasn't an actual tool. It was just kind of like a place we just stored information, but that was so handcuffing, so even up to that, then we were still using like Excel printouts to record activity, because it just was so, just nobody wanted to be in the system. And it's like, what are we doing? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think something that you all have bubbled up that I was actually saving it for the latter half of the conversation, but I'm just going to go into it now, is this whole idea behind partnership, right? And at the end of the day, the work that you all are trying to do, for everybody that's tuning in, you're working to build deeper relationships with your donors, right? And our donors are living in a hyper-personalized world where you sit down on the couch at night, you turn on Netflix, you get in the car, you turn on Spotify, and we're living in a world where everything is personalized. The Alexa on my desk behind me reminds me every 3 weeks that I'm running out of Nespresso pods, right? Like we are living in a world where our actions and behaviors are driving the experiences that we have day in and day out. And I mean, I think about past cancer hospital foundations that I worked with that were on Blackbaud and Razor's Edge, and we'd be sitting around the table and we did not have access or visibility to build relationships with our donors who were going through a number of things. And one might be having been a survivor of cancer. Another might have been actually getting treatment in real time in the hospital as we speak. It could be they have a friend or loved one that has either passed away because of cancer or is on their own cancer journey, right? And like, these are deeply personal things that impact the lives of our donors. But when we can't meet them in that intimate, vulnerable space, we're doing a huge disservice to their own personal experience. And so when I think about relationship and partnership, I think that like the relationships that you're building with your donors has to translate more holistically to all of the tools that you're using to build those relationships. And so the common theme that I'm hearing around the room is that there was something within partnership that was deeply lacking. And so I think where I'm curious about is, as Brian kind of phrased it nicely, like as you picked your head up and looked around at other potential partners from a technology perspective, as you were deciding and navigating what was next, like what were the factors that came into partnership that were most important to you? Like how did partnership guide your decision-making process as you started to think, we might need to make a change?
I can speak briefly about that. Like we narrowed it down to two CRMs that we were evaluating. One was Virtuous, the other was Salesforce. And we actually had a donor telling us we should use Virtuous and a different donor telling us we should use Salesforce. And what it came down to for us was all of our interactions with Virtuous were very personal. We felt like it was a great team, everyone that seemed competent, and we just didn't get the sense of a big company versus Salesforce is just a massive beast of a company. And they have a great product. And the other thing that we sort of made us choose Virtuous was, we got the sense that Salesforce takes like an entire team just dedicated to babysitting the database. Versus with Virtuous, especially with the automations, we felt like we were adding staff to our team by having all these automations do data cleanup, moves management, simple work, things like that. So we're like, we either have to go with Salesforce and maybe hire a database administrator full-time, or you go with Virtuous and get back time from all of the cool features in Virtuous.
Yeah, I mean, that's very similar for us. It was usability. Again, do I need an advanced, technology degree to make sense of this, or can I get somebody in this that will actually like work their way through it? And so for us, that was huge, just to have that piece of, we felt like everybody on the team could walk into this space, know what was going on, and not be confused. And then for us, the big piece is marketing integration as well. How do we fold in all of that in one home, so that what we're doing on the marketing side, what we're doing on the mass communication side is both visible to the donor relation side, and also connective and kind of building on one another, and being able to have transparency into that, so that we could, anybody in the team could jump in and see what emails are being sent, what's being opened, what pieces of mail have gone out, et cetera, and seeing all that kind of in one home was, to us, yeah, super important.
We looked at, it was similar for us. I mean, that the size of the company and the fact that our first kind of look at Virtuous, I had my whole team kind of do a demo, because obviously I want my whole team to be very comfortable with it, be able to use it. Right now, a lot of my directors are just avoiding Razor's Edge, and I really want all of the information in there. We're only as good as our data. And when we came on to look at that, they had everybody on there. They had like the CFO, it wasn't just the salesperson. It was everybody came on to answer questions, to talk with us. And the biggest thing for us is that we looked at a lot of other different CRMs, and this one was focused on fundraising, like really on the donor relationship. And that's really what really interested us. And so that we started looking really deeply into Virtuous. So not only that, but they're right here in Phoenix. They have an office right here. So if I don't get what I want, I'll just go down there and walk in their front door. So there you go. So yeah.
Amazing. So, I mean, I think some common themes that I'm hearing are transparency, visibility in your data, being able to see across all of your activations, whether it's from your volunteers to your communications, to your major gift team, to your individual giving team. What does all of the activity look like across our donors? How are we creating a single experience for our donors as we look to build a deeper relationship? I think the other thing I heard was an all-in-one platform, something that will work cohesively together to help you all save administrative staff time, be able to move more efficiently, more quickly, and allow your team to jump in and jump out. I think something that I just would love to highlight for everybody here, and I'm just going to plug it in the chat, is this is not just accessible to Virtuous customers, but this is actually an accessible resource to any nonprofit in the industry. Is we have a live academy, and I'm just going to link it here in the chat, that basically allows anyone to be able to get certified, not only in the Virtuous platform, but it allows you to get certified as a responsive fundraiser. And, Seth and Brian both mentioned a few things that, reminded me that I wanted to bubble up this methodology of responsive fundraising. So when we talk about how do you build deeper relationships with your donors, we are actually using a methodology that actually sits on top of your donor acquisition and cultivation model that informs how we actually build our software and our tools to better equip nonprofits. And we want to make sure that you have tools that give you the ability to listen more effectively to your donors. So what are the data insights that you're getting? How can you see your donor behavior and activity across all of their interactions with you? And then how do those interactions actually inform communications, and automation that can help you create a deeper connection in order to make the right ask at the right time. So we actually have a whole course here in the Virtuous Academy that helps you not only adopt software, but also helps you adopt a methodology and a mindset and a fundraising strategy that can be applied to helping you build a deeper, more personal relationship. I'm kind of jumping around here, but like Mel Trotter has such a radical, cool story on how responsive fundraising as a fundraising methodology, strategy, and mindset not only informed where they chose to make their platform investments, but has actually transformed the way that their team interacts with the beneficiaries in the homeless shelter and rescue mission. It's impacted the way they all operate. And I don't know, I'd love just to hear you expand on that, Seth. I had the chance to be on the ground with Mel Trotter last May, and I often refer to it as it was my single best day at Virtuous. It was so powerful and so moving to see how you all are being more responsive, not just with your donors, but with your guests. And so I just would love to hear you expand on that a little bit. I think it's really powerful.
Sure. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know that they're necessarily that correlated, but we have this radical idea that we should treat everybody like a human being, regardless of whether they're experiencing homelessness or not. It's kind of a crazy idea, but there you go. And so what we've really begun to implement, at least within the programmatic side of things, is how do we not only transform our space? We just got done with a $17 million building project to transform our space from what you might think of as a typical shelter, which is like big dorms with, in our case, we had the biggest dorm had 120 beds in it, to college dorm style. So everything is college suite style. So bunk room, shared bathroom, bunk room. And then, transforming our space. And then we're right in the midst of transforming our kind of the way that our staff both view themselves, view their role, like getting rid of words like security, getting rid of words like, like advocates, and just really intentionally building even staff titles to better reflect the endpoints that we want people to have. And also what we view as our mission is to kind of be at least the shelter side, to be more of an ER for homelessness than a end game for homelessness. And so how do we use the shelter services? And this is where the individualized component of this comes in. So we have a whole triage team who within 48 hours are connecting with any new guest in our building to understand what brought you here, what assets do you bring to the table, what resources do you have, knowledge base, et cetera, what has led you here? How do we then set you on a pathway to what you will define as success going forward? And how do we leverage, it's funny because we also are implementing a lot of data and analytics on that side of things as well, but how do we leverage that knowledge to create transformational pathways for anybody experiencing homelessness, whether that's in prevention, whether that's in shelter services or housing and jobs. And so, so it's kind of been a corporate transformation period. And then obviously that's been applying to how we do fundraising, how we treat our donors, everything. Let's make that very intentional and relational as opposed to cold and corporate.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for entertaining my curiosity there. So I'd love to spend some time in the space of the process that you went through with your team while you were in the decision-making process. So what questions were most important for you to answer in the process of making a selection? And how did you incorporate your teams holistically into that? Just kind of curious on what dots we can connect between realizing that you needed to make a change and what were the factors that played into your process of change?
I mean, for us, we have three teams. We have marketing, we have development, and then we have advancement services. So each one had different needs and different wants. I also apologize, they're leaf blowing outside my window. But so, marketing, they were curious about what does virtuous marketing look like? How are we going to be able to send email, track metrics, and, and what does the builder look like? Development, their main concern was, I'm in a hotel room and all I have is my iPad. Can I use the database, or am I going to have Citrix? And, and then advancement services, their main concerns were ease of gift entry and, running reports and cleaning up the data import process. So I think for each one of those, we sort of brought those questions to the table during the process of considering Virtuous. And just like Barbara, I had everyone on our team do a demo and play around in a test environment and try to break it, what are your pain points individually when you're on the road or when you're slamming through 1,000 gifts, or, what are your pain points, and let's bring them to Virtuous. And everyone came back really, really happy and excited about what Virtuous could do for our team. And I think in terms of change management, having everyone get excited about it made the process and the mountain that you have to climb for a database conversion much easier, because everyone saw the goal that we were marching towards. So it was a good process. Everyone got really excited about Virtuous and was like, can we do this tomorrow? And, and it was a great experience for our team.
My team was exactly the same. Can we get on this tomorrow? Just the ease of use. I know that it was similar with my database administrator, with the ease of gift entry, and the grant management was a big thing for us, and being able to track grants so that we could report correctly on grants. Just looking at my notes here, the moves management and the biggest thing were the workflows, because, we're all working with limited staff, and, being able to put those workflows in there so everybody knows, whether it's one donor or a group of donors or prospects. So that was really, really interesting to us. And we thought that was they did it. Virtuous does that, in my opinion, better than any of the others that we looked at. And that was a big, big decision maker for us.
Yeah. What about you all, Seth?
Yeah. So our biggest concerns again were usability. I think it's been interesting now that we've been in this almost 3 years. I think we had certain people that inherited an expectation of what a CRM would do. So as we're implementing new things, there's lots of eye rolls. And now the majority of my team are coming to me with concepts of how we can add workflow processes or how we can improve efficiency on things, because they've kind of seen the benefit for them of being able to utilize some of these tools. And so it's gone from kind of dragging people along saying, hey, trust me, this will be a benefit, to now having a team that want to be involved. We had a few people leave because as we implemented a lot more accountability and transparency with what activity looked like and how we were tracking those things, we had some people leave because they were kind of able to hide within the old system in a way that they all of a sudden couldn't. And so not only have we, I think, gotten through some of those pain points, but I think we're a much more efficient and better team because of some of the ways that we've built this, because we've just added, frankly, better people doing those jobs. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great insight. And I also just think a great watch out for anyone that's considering change. Again, like the only change, changing a platform isn't going to be the only change that ripple effects out of that. But like, love hearing that there's a brighter side, even with, potential staff transitions and what increasing efficiency and impact looks like at your organization. Seth, also, I'm just gonna keep bragging on Seth. Seth called out an amazing statistic when we were with you in May, and you had said something along the lines of, and if I misquote you, please let me know, but you had said something along the lines of, we don't currently have a workflow automation in Virtuous that existed 6 months ago. All that to say, like, to me, that called out the ways in which your team is actually innovating and learning and making adjustments in real time to be able to connect with and communicate with your donors more personally. Like, you're not just implementing something and staying stagnant, you're constantly adapting. And to me, that just that was like at the core of what we're trying to help nonprofits do.
Yeah. I think we have one or two that are pretty basic, like thank you, workflow tasks kind of things might be existent, but pretty much everything else we've scrapped. I was just looking today, we have almost 40 workflows running right now. I think we'll have, in the next 6 months, we'll probably have 100, close to 100 once we're folding in like email preferences and things like that. So yeah, we're kind of, but every 6 months we look at all of them and kind of ask, is this still working? Is this working for us? Does this content help us? And in many cases, we've kind of gone back to the drawing board and just scrapped everything because we felt like it was either not getting what we needed out of it, or we thought we could do it better, or it's becoming redundant on something. So yeah.
I'll say we have about 30 or so workflows too. And what we've really doubled down on is using them for data integrity. So we have a bunch of workflows just checking, like when a new contact record is created, does it have all these things? And if not, assign a task to them for advancement services person to clean up and make sure that they have this tag or this field set. So like it's really improved just our data health overall, because those workflows run every night and they just clean up the data that we tell it to look at. And then I like sharing the story. We have a basic thank you sort of tier for portfolios, and then different levels of gift that they get assigned a certain call or action. But then we have a second workflow that we have the donor search integration. And so we run a wealth screen on them. And then if they're rated like a DS11 in donor search or DS12, to like flag them. And this is where like it's a huge value add, I think, for Virtuous is this donor, just a very basic name. None of us would have recognized the name from the pile of gifts. And they made a $50 gift to our organization. And then all of a sudden the next day, donor search, the donor search ran the wealth profile, and I got a task that there is a potential major donor. And it came back that it was this major, philanthropist in San Francisco worth $500 million. And it's just one of those like diamonds in the rough that like she would have just gone through our system. She would have gotten a basic thank you note. Hey, thanks for your $50. We really appreciate you. She maybe get a touch point or two more down the road. But then I was able to be like, why don't I have a gift officer call her and thank her? And why don't we write a handwritten note and start moving it towards, this isn't just a $50 gift. And so, yeah, the workflow automations are amazing. Things don't fall through the cracks like they used to in Razor's Edge. And we're able to be a much more responsive organization to our donors because of that. And I would say donors are surprised by how quickly we call it a thank. And the receipting is so fast now in Virtuous compared to Razor's Edge. Sometimes that we send receipts and donors get them before our finance office has a chance to bank the check. So donors are like, are you sure you got my gift? And we're like, oh, we got it. We just, we think before we bank kind of thing. So yeah, the automations are amazing and are a huge value add and really set Virtuous apart.
That's an awesome add. To answer Kim's question here in the chat, we do have an official partnership with Donor Search, and there is an integration set up so that you can use those tools together through a seamless integration. I will also say that Virtuous has an open API, which basically means that you can integrate other tools and technologies and products directly into the system so that you can see all of your data in one place in one snapshot. There have been some questions that have trickled through. I couldn't tell, Barbara, if you were jumping to add onto this thread or if I can. No. Okay, cool. This is great. Thanks, Seth. Thanks, Brian. Great insights. I'd love to know. Let's see. I just want to make sure that I'm catching everyone here. And Deanne, I'm going to get to your question as well. One question was, in terms of timing, when did you get started? How long did it take? And how should folks listening in take timing into consideration in terms of how long it takes to make a change? And I think something that I want to plant is that I'd love to include data migration into the timing consideration, because making a decision and signing a contract is different than being able to go live and get your team in the platform using it day by day. So what did timing look like for your team?
I can speak to that because we are in the process of migrating. We're in our first test database. We signed our contract, I believe, at the end of October, or end of October, I believe. And we've been in our first test database for a couple of weeks already. And in that process, what I really liked about it is that we were told it might be a little bit longer wait, but it came up very, quickly. They were able to get us in and start the migration. But the whole process has been amazing because while this kind of migration and stuff was happening and we were doing the mapping, we were training on Virtuous Academy, meeting with our success coach every 2 weeks. So that it's been quick for us and we're very excited about that.
We started talking to Virtuous in, I think, August or September of 2020. We signed a contract late October. We started the database conversion in January with the goal of being live in Virtuous for July 1 for the new fiscal year. So we kind of were like, we don't want to be cross fiscal years in 2 different systems. So we really made it our goal to get everything done in 6 months. And yeah, we went through our test databases, found a lot of errors, and we're live, I think, in like June. So we had about a month where, overlap where we had our live Virtuous environment, and then we had Razor's Edge too. So for us, it was about, from like talking to Virtuous to we're in a live database, it was like 10 months. It was pretty quick turnaround, all things considered.
Yeah, we're probably the anomaly here where I think talking to Virtuous to live was 4.5 months maybe. And that's part of just product of our team culture a little bit. We're just kind of charge ahead folks. But yeah, we went, we had the initial conversation sometime like February of 2020 and we're fully live July 1st. So, yeah.
Helpful insights. So as you made the change, I want to go back to Deanne's question earlier. So can you tell us a little bit more about the process with data migration? Like how did that go for you? What was the process of getting your data moved over from Razor's Edge into Virtuous? Would love to just shine a light on that process. Barbara already did a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did a lot of cleanup in Razor's Edge. We had a lot of junk data. So we spent probably, we signed the contract in October of 2020, and we spent November and December into January just going through our data and merging fields, deleting used one, just like things that were in the database, cleaning up names, cleaning up relationships. And that made the actual conversion process 100 times better because, it wasn't all this garbage that we had to sift through. We cleaned it up a little bit, cleaned it up during the conversion process, and then did a final cleanup once it was in Virtuous. But that prep work really helped us because, it was just, we share a database with 4 different entities in the province. So we have like the central fundraising office, we have our seminary school, we have a couple other ministries. So you have gift processors from all these ministries that all have their own way of putting data in. And it's now standardized in Virtuous. We're like, we have a new toy, we're not going to break it. So we have a SOP for everyone on how to name things. And so, but yeah, there was a lot of early cleanup made the conversion a lot smoother for our team.
Yeah, and our data was kind of a mess. And so it actually, we were sort of expecting worse integration problems and didn't really have that many. I think we had to do some finagling. Somebody had asked about financial. We definitely had to do some API things to make sure that everything at the time anyway, because we were pretty early. So I think this might even be different now, but we were having to do a little bit of API work to make sure that our finance software and Virtuous were playing nice with each other. But in general, the migration was you kind of are waiting for it to be terrible, and it wasn't. And I think that was, yeah.
I love it. You also answered Deanne's question a little bit, but what is the accounting finance software that you all use, and does it integrate with Virtuous?
What do we use? We use Sage Intacct.
Use Sage, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, at the time, I think we had to do some finagling with it, but I think now it's much more seamlessly integrated.
We use QuickBooks, and so there is a integration with Virtuous. And Funds in Virtuous are called projects, and it's great because you can name them all sorts of ways for fundraising, but then they have a field called external accounting code, I think.
Mhm.
So we just take finance, whatever line item that they have in QuickBooks, we just drop those fields into that field and it just syncs seamlessly. I mean, it's fantastic.
I can't remember what our accounting department uses. We're not integrated now with Razor's Edge with them, and they have no interest in integrating right now with anything. So we're still just sending them hard copy reports. Yeah, they're kind of on their own.
Awesome. Got it. So I want to, okay, one more question I want to cover in the chat, and I'm jumping around a little bit, but would love to hear from, Seth and Brian. What does your data entry look like in Virtuous as compared to Razor's Edge? I want to make sure I have Issa's question here covered. For example, she was wondering about import IDs and, what does that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any issues, I guess, with data entry. It seems, at least from our point of view, what we appreciate is both there's plenty of fields within Virtuous that, sometimes we'll have to do a little bit of work to make sure that we're inputting the right, kind of renaming or training out some vernacular to make sure that we're inputting the right kind of pieces in the right places. And we've built some custom fields as well to make it work for us. Some of that was things we inherited from Razor's Edge. We just want to make sure that we've kept, and there are things that's just, I think probably organization by organization, there's certain pieces. But we've never had, I think, again, just from the transparency side of things, everything kind of fits and makes sense. What I love too is how, because of the data pieces, because of the integrations, then you can build workflows off of literally any input. So it doesn't matter, that's what we love about it is like you can, with the integration of marketing, if we can build workflows based on who clicked on what website or who clicked on what email or who gave through what channel. And there's all these kind of pieces because all of that sort of sits in the same home. And then you can decide, what do you want to do with this? Honestly, the answer to that what is pretty endless. So.
I would say, yeah, importing is a lot easier than it was in Razor's Edge. Razor's Edge imports are just a nightmare. And the thing that I really like about Virtuous is the tag system. We we have hundreds of tags, but each individual in that does imports, we've created like temp tags for us. So there's like a Fegly temp tag. So if I'm working with data and I need to work with a certain group of donors in the database, I do a tag import with their contact IDs, and then they get assigned my Fegly temp tag, and then I can do whatever I need to do, assign them to an event or run a report or something. So tags are incredibly powerful. The contact import, gift import tools for your data processors are great, very seamless, very friendly to user-friendly, and really helps keep down from duplicates being made because the system's constantly searching, like, is a Brian Fegly already in the system? And then the third thing I'd say, there's a field called external ID, and that's super helpful if, say, you use MailChimp for your email system, or you use a different software and you have contact IDs in that software. You can assign to a contact in Virtuous an external ID for MailChimp. And then when you're doing imports, it will just link up with that external ID. So super helpful when you're trying to combine two systems into one with all these different tools. And yeah, the importing process is very, very easy compared.
Great insights. Thanks. If anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to bubble them up in the chat. We're going to start wrapping up in a little while. There's still an hour is not enough time to cover all of the questions and things that we wanted to dive into. But if people have more questions, we are happy to dig in and answer them. I'm also happy if anyone wants to raise their hand. Happy to give you the ability to talk and ask questions if you want to join in on the conversation. So please just let us know. Either drop us a note in the chat or use the raise hand reaction, and can give folks the ability to chat. But before we go there, I want to pivot towards and this will be a little bit different for you, Barbara, but I still want to include you here, is what are the impacts that you've seen through the change? And I think, Barbara, for you, this might be, what are you most excited to implement, and what are you most excited to work towards accomplishing once you're live? But for Seth and Brian, I'd pivot the question towards what are the big impacts that you've seen across giving, donor retention, growth? What are some big standout highlights and wins that you would give for your organizations after making the change?
We saw an increase in revenue. Anecdotally, donors, like I mentioned earlier, they felt that we were more responsive to them, thanking them quicker. Our receipting usually goes out next business day, versus it might be several business days or a week later with Razor's Edge, just trying to work with their system. So, we're much more responsive in their stewardship. Retention is up since we've switched. Basically all of it first year overall. Repeat donor retention, it's all up. And I think we also use the Metabase integration, and we're able to do a lot of really deep dive analysis of past giving. But I've been also playing around with using different statistical models for predictive modeling for our fundraising program. So lots of really awesome results in basically every area. Our email open rates are 40 to 50% on average, which is amazing. So just a lot of really great returns.
Yeah, for us, it was user ability. So just seeing people actually using it. Year over year, we because we're a social service, we call it the COVID bump. We had a funny, 2021 and late 2020, but looking just between 2019 and now, we've seen big revenue increases in the things you would expect to see because of Virtuous. So we call it gift advisors, so our gift advisor income is up significantly. Our monthly donor program is up significantly. Things like that, where we can see the impact. And the places we're lagging are the places that we don't have, there's some of our third-party stuff and things like that we don't have the same level of intentionality and integration. And so, and then for us, it's just that for me too, it's been able to transform how our team looks. So we were able to, because of, I think Brian mentioned this, but, because of the simplicity, because of the cloud-based approach, because of me as leader being able to see what activity looks like and what's going on and chart it through tasks and through notes and things like that. We went from having a very redundant team where everybody had to be in the system to half our team's remote. I have people very specialized in different pieces and different components of what they're doing, so that we could create a much more responsive team because of the platform that we had that was able to let us do that.
Awesome. So Barbara, I'm curious from your perspective, you're in the thick of change still.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about implementing day one?
We are really excited about the marketing piece. Blackbaud on what we work with is very, very limited in the forms and things that we can use. So we're really excited about that. I have a very small marketing team. It's one person for a statewide agency. So looking for that automation. And I think just having our directors of development be able to really pinpoint, we have a huge database and we probably have people lost in there. And since we are short-staffed, they have huge prospect lists. So being able to really drill down on who are the tier one, who are the tier two, which ones do we look at as third, and start, weeding out some of those people so that they're not all getting the same, stewardship and attention, that we can really personalize things, that we can really focus our efforts on those people and the different ways in engaging them based on their level with us, instead of treating everybody the same, as Brian and Seth were talking about before. Having that ability to do different, thank yous. And if that person pops up as having capacity with just that $50 gift, you can do it. You can be like, okay, we got to change direction here and do different stewardship with this person. So it's really that relationship building that I think that responsive fundraising will really drive, that we're really looking forward to. And just the ease of the system. Our transition right now, going through the data mapping and everything, has been, I have to say, almost painless. I was really, really worried about it. But the data people that we're working with have been so helpful in helping us understand. And that's the biggest thing, understanding the different, they're called different things in Virtuous. And that really makes it important when talking about the mapping. The tags are really, really important. So it's just been seamless for us. We have found just a few things in our test database that we need to just tweak. And we'll be getting another test database, but it's been really seamless, and we'll probably be live by April, and we're really excited about it. I think we're going to see our donor retention go up, which is what we're really focusing on because we've struggled with that. So we're very excited to get on to Virtuous and really start working with the tools.
That's fantastic. A ton of questions came in through the chat, and I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I'm going to try and squeeze in as many as I can. There were 2 questions that came through about, managing your recurring givers. And so I'm curious just to understand, like, what does managing your monthly giving program look like in Virtuous? So let's start there.
We use Virtuous Giving, so it's very well integrated into the whole system. And yeah, I mean, I think you have the ability to use other payment processors. We started on Stripe, but then when Virtuous Giving came out, we switched over to that just because it's more integrated in the system. And yeah, I think it overall is a good process, and we're able to keep track of who are current members. And what's very nice is on a profile, you can see active recurring schedules, but also previous ones. So if someone stopped previously, you can see that very easily. It's called out inside of Virtuous. So yeah, our whole program is on Virtuous Giving right now.
And we use Raise Donors sort of on top of it. And that's been great from from the donor dashboard side of things. And so we pivoted this year. We have somebody focusing full time in building our monthly ecosystem. And so, yeah, they've almost doubled our monthly giving in 18 months through that process. Wow. So, yeah.
That's incredible. I also, like, Seth, how do you all use workflows with your recurring givers?
So we use it from, we have some like update kind of things. We have with every new donor, we have a new donor workflow process that ranges anywhere from a couple months for like a one-time online donor to 9 months for bigger donors. And then new monthly donors are a component of that. We also use it when a monthly donor leaves, like if we miss a payment somehow. We have a couple different automation processes asking them, hey, did your credit card get stolen? Is that why you're not giving anymore? Or if, so just some prompts and things like that, which has been fantastic for us as well.
Nice, helpful insights. I know there's been a few questions about workflow and automation, and I want to, Katie, you had a really interesting question around, are the online giving forms more user-friendly and easy to use? But it sounds like Katie at her organization is also seeing large numbers of people that visit the donation page, but do not ever complete the gift. So we have a lot of donation page abandons. I actually, this is my favorite question to ask, like from stage. If I go to a conference and I speak, I want to see a show of hands. Who's tracking the number of donors that go to your donation page and don't give? And what are you doing about it? And it's shocking how much silence I usually hear. And this is where workflows and automation and communication can really help with the marketing platform within Virtuous, because you could actually automate a donor re-engagement campaign by the donor signal. Did someone visit this page on my website and then abandon the form? So you could have something immediately initiate a way to re-engage that donor to see if they'd like to come back and give again. So really powerful ways that we can see giving and automation and marketing overlap here in the platform. I think the question I want to end on is actually Kim's question. Kim Larson asked a really interesting question about perceptions and beliefs. And this was actually a question I was thinking of ending on my end, because I was curious about what were false perceptions that maybe you all had at the onset that has shifted or changed? And Kim's question was along the line of, what advice do you have with making a change with the long held belief that Razor's Edge was the development CRM? And why make a change besides, potentially cost? But like, what are some of the long held beliefs that made it hard to change were dispelled for you through the process?
I've joked about it. I sometimes felt like I had Stockholm syndrome with Blackbaud. Like, who else should I go but you, Blackbaud? And I think 10 years ago, yeah, they were probably the best nonprofit technology company out there. However, it's my personal opinion that I think they rested on those laurels, and they're no longer the best. And if anything, they're a legacy product, and I think they just have a lot of issues as a company. And so for us, when the data breach happened and it impacted us, and we started like poking our heads out and looking around, that is when the spell broke over me as a fundraiser. And I realized, oh, wow, like there's some really amazing companies out there that are doing really great work. And they're not just sort of like, I don't know, I guess before that moment, I always thought like, well, if it's a good idea, Blackbaud would be doing it. That was like what I thought. And the data breach was a real wake-up call for our team and for our boards. And I don't think that Blackbaud is no longer the leader. And we're so happy with Virtuous. And I don't know, I don't know if you guys get these. I always get like random headhunter emails for other jobs. And you maybe take 5 minutes and imagine what life would be like as that position. And I always am like, when I see like proficiency in Razor's Edge, I immediately am like, oh, I don't know if I want to go back. So like, I feel so spoiled right now working with Virtuous, working with a company that we just really love, and the values are we're compatible with. And I think that myth is eroding as that they're the leader. So that's my 2 cents.
And I agree with Brian completely. Blackbaud is all I've known in my career. That's all I've ever worked on. And from the days when I started with them years and years ago, I have an example where when we were first starting out with them, somebody resorted our code tables by mistake. And so we had a nightmare on our hands, and our rep there was on the phone with us for hours fixing it. Now I can't even get anybody to answer a simple question. So it's the service for me. They've gone from this small company that was customer focused to this huge company that doesn't know what they want to be. They keep buying up different companies and other things, and that seems to be their focus, rather than focusing on what their core kind of mission was, so to speak, when they started. So that was it for me. It was difficult because this is all I've ever known, and it's a comfort thing. But for the better of our organization and our ability to do better work, we had to do it. I had to make that change.
Yeah, and I think I don't have as much history with Blackbaud, so what I can say is for us, just the customer service side of it is everybody I know that has had Razor's Edge just cannot stop being frustrated by the lack of customer service. And Brian, I'll toot y'all's horn for a minute, but I cannot tell you how many features that exist in Virtuous now that we were complaining about 3 years ago. But because you guys are responsive. And so even just this past month, we were out in Phoenix for the user summit, and we've had a couple frustrations with some of the the database or the donor platform things. And so 3 people from the Virtuous team reached out to us, grabbed us coffee, sat down with us for 90 minutes and just said, hey, all right, go. Like, what's going on? Like, how do we, and then, so just something like as simple as that tells you kind of all you need to know as far as like what is happening. And like, so we feel confident saying, yeah, it might not be tomorrow, but we know that some of these solutions that still feel like pain points from time to time, which it's a piece of technology that's going to happen, right? There's going to be these frustrations, et cetera. You're at least getting that human being attention to detail side of it that lets you work through those.
Mm-hmm. And can we talk about downtime? How many times have you logged in to Blackbaud's products and you can't get in? There's an issue. So that, I don't know if anybody experienced, was it last year, the year before, during year end, when it was down and we couldn't get gifts in. So that was a huge wake up call.
Mm. Well, thanks, y'all. I am really conscious of time. I feel like we need a part 2 to dive even deeper. I feel like we could have done like a 5-part series, before, during, and after the change. But thank you all so much. Thank you for your time. But I just want to say thank you for the work that you do day in and day out. And personally, on behalf of myself and the entire Virtuous team, like, it is an honor to be able to be at your side, to be in partnership with each of you, and to be on the journey with you. The work that you're doing, the collective work, not just here in the panel, but everyone in the room, like, your mission is worthy of your time and your energy and your talent. And, we believe deeply in giving you the tools and the resources to do that effectively, because changing the world's most pressing challenges is hard work. And right. And like the generosity that flows in from your donors should also flow into you. And you should be equipped with the right tools and the right people at your side that can help you achieve your mission and get the job done that you're trying to achieve. So it's an honor. Thank you for the friendship. Thank you for the relationship. Thanks for taking the time today to share your experience with others. And I want to let everyone know here in the chat that if you would like a personalized demo, if you would like to have our team set up an instance that can show you how your organization can be more successful, can engage donors more personally, utilize automation and workflows to create deeper relationships with your donors, and all the other features that we offer, I'm going to drop a demo link in the chat here right now. We'd love to have a conversation with you. We'd love to listen to you and hear about what's hard. And we'd love to be able to collaborate with you on how we can help you solve those challenges. So thank you so much for the work that you all do. Thanks for spending an hour of your precious time with us. And we hope to connect with each of you one-on-one in the future. And if you have more questions, we are going to be following up via email with the recording. And if you do have questions, you can also reply directly to that email. Those emails come right to my inbox. So would love to have a conversation, would love to answer any questions that went unanswered and put you in touch with the right person on our team that can help. So thank you all so much. Barbara, Seth, Brian, really appreciate you all. And until next time, we'll see you soon.